Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you all for joining. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Morning Health Talk with Coco Fresh. I am the medicine woman, Yoella, and these are my special guests today.
Good morning. I'm Nani, hopefully your favorite career and confidence coach and founder of the Ladies of Elegance Charm Academy.
And my name is Shamarah, wife of Bishop Nathaniel of Israel United in Christ. Thank you for having us.
Good morning, everybody. So today we have another exciting talk for you all today. Hopefully it will be a nice conversation. We try to bring you nice, exciting health news outside of the box, just to get ourselves thinking and things like that. So today we're going to talk about self-esteem and how it boosts your immune system. So have you heard of the best medicine is laughter, or you're going to worry yourself sick? These are not just sayings, they are true. These are not just cliches. When we're happy, we release optimum levels of serotonin and oxytocin, and serotonin has also been linked to the immune system for improvement. So I'm going to read a little article from Nature magazine. There was a time when medical professionals rejected the idea that any psychological state, positive or negative, could affect physical well-being. But studies during the 1980s and early 90s revealed that the brain is directly wired to the immune system. I don't know about y'all, but my grandmother Ben knew that. She used to say, "You gonna worry yourself sick." Remember that?
Yes, indeed.
So we been knew that.
Worry yourself to an early grave, is what my
Yes,
grandmother used to say.
exactly. And that is actually true. So portions of the nervous system connect with immune-related organs, such as the thymus and bone marrow, and immune cells have receptors that neurotransmitters, suggesting that there is communication. And we know this, it's obvious, it's, not rocket science. So these connections seem to have clinical relevance of stress. One of the first researchers commented saying that when I started working in the 1980s, nobody believed what stress could do, including me, he recalls. And he and his colleagues sampled blood from medical students and found that during a stressful exam, they had lower activity from virus-fighting immune cells and higher levels of antibodies during various other times, suggesting that stress had compromised their immune system and allowed normally latent virus to become reactive. So, ladies, do you all have anything to say to that?
Well, the scripture in Nehemiah 8 verse 10 says that the joy of the Lord is your strength. So depression and lack of self-esteem, they really do, like our grandmother said, they can put you into an early grave. And unfortunately, a lot of our women in the Black and brown community suffer from depression and low self-esteem, and therefore we have hatred amongst one another. There are colorism issues, and we'll get into that. Hatred of self, hatred of the men in our lives. So this bubbles more down the line. It's not just an individual thing, but it also is about nation building and the lack thereof, all bound to self-esteem.
Right, and there's been all kinds of physical evidence, especially on the negative side of it, right? So what happens when, say, for example, a spouse dies and you die shortly after, or the other person dies shortly after, from a broken heart, so to speak? That directly shows a link between your mindset and the rest of your physical body,
Absolutely. So, what does happiness look like to me specifically? To me, it's having confidence, self esteem, constantly working on myself, learning and applying the biblical laws, self achievement, and instilling these things into my children. So, these things are what brings me joy and what brings me happiness. And I ask you all, ladies, or even if there's men on the inside the room, inside the chat, what brings you happiness? I remember a long time ago when I was courting, I was sharing this story on Monday night when I was courting. I remember saying, I want a nice little apartment in Brooklyn with my Lord. I want a nice little apartment in Brooklyn. And the Most High gave us a nice little apartment in Brooklyn. And I had never lived in an apartment before, so I didn't know what I was asking for. So it was nice in the beginning. The children started coming, and I started to feel like the walls were like closing down on me. I was sad all the time. I just couldn't really get myself together. I would get counsel with a lot of my elder mothers, and it was like, you have to pray for contentment. You have to learn how to be content in your situation, and you don't know how you'll react to certain things until you're in it. So that was a new challenge for me, to learn how to be content in any space that I'm in. So what I did was just rearrange my whole life. So I was homeschooling my kids. So instead of waking up and starting to homeschool, I would wake up, say my prayers, do things like that, and we would immediately go outside. So we would go outside, we would walk, they would play in the park. It was nice and quiet. And I felt like that was a little bit of mental health for me, so the kids got nice and tired. I was kind of like waiting for them to say, okay, I'm ready to go back inside. So then we would go back inside. I would start dinner, then I would start homeschooling. And that gave me a lot of peace, a lot of joy. So sometimes a little bit of, rearranging of your life will bring you a little bit more joy and happiness. Um, you know, and also that goes along with applying the scriptures. That also
Right.
goes along with. So I had to actively work on things that would make me happy daily. My joy came from the scriptures. I loved watching class. So I had gotten some headphones, while my kids were doing their schoolwork, listen to class, listen to health talk radio, things that gave me joy. And, it was in that nice long walk that helped my mental state. And I noticed that I was getting healthier. I noticed that I was making better food choices. I noticed that I was dealing with my family way better, so sometimes these things just plague your mind for no reason at all. It's just a simple twist that you have to do. So um, in terms of self-esteem and confidence, I wanted Sister Nani to talk about that, when it comes to being self-sufficient and self-achievement and things like that.
Yes. So, oh man, so I talk with a lot of ladies and work with a lot of women the within LOE Academy, and we really talk about the problem. We start with the problem, and the problem is that the majority of us women, us Black and brown women, we go through anxiety, we go through depression, we deal with self-doubt, and we struggle because we think that we should be living a certain quality of life. And some of us may even struggle, with that self-sufficiency aspect. So usually we always tell women, we always start by telling women, it is okay to be strong and still not have it all figured out. Okay. There are women, especially with the daughters of Sarah, who are elder women that are able to teach us that, yes, We don't necessarily have to be superwoman and have the cape on, doing everything for everybody. Sometimes it's important to take off that cape and put on that crown, right? So one of the biggest things that I think a lot of us, especially that are in our 20s through 40s, like late 20s to early 40s, we experience what's known as a quarter life crisis. And a lot of us don't even know exactly what that looks like. We haven't even heard of it, right? And so it's very similar to what would be considered a midlife crisis. And after I deal with my little spiel, I'd be anxious to hear from Mama Shamarah in terms of how her experience has been with the midlife crisis situation. But the quarter life crisis deals with a lot of things. So it's literally just us experiencing the things that go on with the midlife crisis, except at a younger age. So the definition of a quarter life crisis in popular psychology is that this is a crisis involving anxiety over the direction and quality of one's life, which is most commonly experienced in a period ranging from a person's early 20s up to their mid 30s, although the quarter life crisis can begin as early as 18. Okay, so this is usually expressed as a period of insecurity, a period of doubt, a period of disappointment surrounding your career, your relationships, and your financial situation. So if all those things are out of balance in one way or another, then we can't become the very best versions of ourselves because we're isolated in this one headspace around what we lack or what we feel we lack, right? So a lot of us try to build what we call generational wealth, which a lot of us have no idea what that is, right? And we still find ourselves stuck on where to start, how to be financially dependent. We're overwhelmed with the trajectory of our life with no end in sight. And sometimes we look around and we say, whose life is this? And how did I end up here? Because you found yourself surrounded by, people who just don't have the positive energy that you need later on in your life. So you're looking to press reset on your personal and sometimes even your romantic relationships because you just don't need the toxic vibes. That all encompassing is what is defined as a quarter life crisis. So normally, if you're going through a quarter life crisis, there are certain signs that are very easily identifiable. So for example, you may be experiencing what's known as imposter syndrome. You may be, more oftentimes than not, you may be the first person or the only one in your family breaking barriers. You may have this big vision and because nobody came before you to make what you see every day a reality, you have no idea where to start, what to do, what resources to grab. As a first generation, I call them change makers, right? Because we have this big vision and we're like, I want to make an impact. I want to change lives. I want to help people. I want to, do this big thing and leave my mark on the world. But you may even, with that big ambition and those big goals and this hardworking personality, you may put on the confident face, when other people are looking, but you may feel like a brittle butterfly inside when you're alone. You're thinking, why isn't there a manual on this? I don't know what I'm doing. Sometimes you may be thinking when you're going through imposter syndrome, you may be thinking, I'm not qualified enough. I don't have the credentials to talk about this. I'm not educated enough. Who am I to be bringing forth something this revolutionary? I don't have all the tools. I don't have all the equipment. So that's where the self-doubt comes in.
So can I interject? Because what you're saying, if I may for a moment, because that really in a spiritual context where I come in from is that the imposter syndrome is real with repentant Israelite women. It's real because we put on a facade like everything is okay. You go to Sabbath class, shalom, shalom, most high name Christ bless you. And then you have two sides of that. You have some women, for example, who have not fully repented whatsoever, but it's a show. It's an imposter that the representative that has shown up. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have the woman that really, really is trying to do the best that she possibly can spiritually, and then feels like she's coming short. And I think that not only is that relevant to the age group that you were talking about specifically, but I think that in your spiritual journey continuing, that always goes on. I don't think that that ever kind of separates from it, because that's where we would call the transformation phase in the butterfly journey, because in the beginning, you don't really know what you're doing. Okay. And this is really interesting, because yesterday morning after I said my prayers, I come outside and there's a butterfly that is literally struggling to get up, and it's being attacked by like another insect. But we go through those different phases where not only do we feel like we are attacked by outside sources, but we are attacking ourselves with our thoughts and different actions that we have to do. So self-esteem basically is shaped by your thoughts, your relationships, and your experiences. And one of my favorite to go to scriptures, and I say it all the time, is Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, because these are the things that you need to think of that are going to keep you in the positive light, and that therefore help you with your self-esteem. If I can read it for a moment, please. Mm-hmm. Give me a moment. So it is Philippians chapter 4. And it says, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. Because a lot of times our thoughts are what get us in the doldrums. And what happens is that things could be going great. Things could be going great in your marriage. Things could be going great with your children. But then you are feeding yourself those negative thoughts, and therefore you lower your self-value. You lower your self-esteem. You lower the strength of your relationships by letting in the poison. You're poisoning your spirit slowly. So absolutely.
And that will in turn lower your self-esteem, these thoughts, lower your confidence level. And then these thoughts can literally make you sick. These thoughts will literally make you sick.
That is true. And the root of it all is perception, because even to Mama Shamarah's point, us women who are in the Israelite community who feel like we're imposters, that's called image management. And believe it or not, when I first came in and I first repented 7 years ago, I was dealing with image management, because I thought that in order to be an example to other women, even though I ain't know nothing, right? In order to be an example to other women, I have to be perfect. I have to make sure that I can't make any mistakes. Everything has to be shiny and everything has to be on point, right? And then you struggle with trying to keep up, like, oh my gosh, I'm making these mistakes, I'm making those mistakes. I didn't realize this is something that I was dealing with. I didn't realize this is a spirit that I have that I need to work on. Right. And then you feel as though you're less than, or you feel inadequate, right? Because you're like, I'm trying to keep up, I'm trying to follow what the scriptures say. I'm overwhelmed right now, and I feel bad because I'm not fitting the expectation of what the scriptures are saying. But there's strength in vulnerability. There's strength in fully embracing all the mistakes that you make, as long as you have the vision for constantly doing better and constantly helping to improve others. If you have that, that kind of mentality where you want to hide behind the mistakes that you make and the issues that you have, but you're still going to bring forth this image as though everything's all good, then you're only fooling yourself. You know what I'm saying? So that's the one thing that I learned, is that there is truly strength in vulnerability, and that nobody else has the story that you have. But the reason why we go through certain situations, and the reason why we experience these brittle butterfly moments, is so that when we overcome them, we're able to help the next sister out that comes in that deals with the exact same brittle butterfly moment. I like that, brittle butterfly moment. Okay, so another thing that we experience in going through the quarter life crisis is, and we discussed this in brief, being trapped inside self-doubt. So we feed ourselves with all this negativity. A lot of us may have a bad habit of second guessing ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're not too firm on the decisions that we make, right? And a lot of it is because we compare ourselves to other people. We think, well, dang, she could do A, B, and C. Well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't have the skills. Maybe I'm not equipped, right? And sometimes you may even be the kind of person that takes constructive criticism personally, where if someone is simply bringing something to you in order to contribute to your self-improvement, you take it like an attack. But you take it like an attack because you already have seen yourself as inadequate.
Can I add a scripture to that?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
in Proverbs chapter 15, verse 10, it says, correction is grievous unto him that forsaketh the way, and he that hateth reproof shall die. So a lot of us, we don't like to be corrected. And correction is good for self-improvement. And self-improvement, and once you see the result of being improved, that also helps with your self-esteem.
Right, exactly. It really does, because it works hand in hand, just like we were talking about the correlation between the mind and the body. Self-esteem and action and your social relationships and self-relationships they all correlate within one another. And if there's a break in that chain, then everything else is going to be messed up. So the foundation is having the self-trust enough, and we'll dive into the solutions in just a little bit, but it's having the self-trust enough in your abilities to say, okay, even though I've made this mistake, how can I perceive that I'm going to improve from making this mistake later, instead of drowning myself in regret, instead of thinking, oh man, I made this mistake, I'm never going to get this right. It's literally a matter of perception. And as long as you paralyze yourself with your own negative self-perception, you will stay trapped inside of your own self-doubt. Okay.
If I make a mistake, I'm usually like, you know what? I have to talk myself through it, and I have to say, I'm going to make another mistake. So either I'm going to stay here, or I'm going to keep going, and maybe the other mistake will come months later, years later, but why stay back there? You know, I'm going to keep making mistakes until I get this thing right. And sometimes we don't think that way. We get so stuck. We get so stuck on that one little thing.
Oh, that's so true. And there was hot diggity. I know, so I was reading somebody's comment in here, but hot diggity, I forgot my point. I hate when that happens. But when I think about the point, I'll be able to bring that back up. Another indicator of the quarter life crisis, and in some cases the midlife crisis, right, is that you go through disappointment, depression, and anxiety. Sometimes there are external sources that contribute to that, but at the end of the day, again, it is about self-perception. So you probably feel that by this point of your life, you should have reached a certain level of quote unquote success, whether that's success. And a lot of times we equate success with how much money we have in our bank account, when success really equates to the quality of life, the quality of your relationships. How are you working on leaving your legacy every single day, right? The people who are kingdom focused or kingdom minded is working on multiplying their talents. How have I applied my gifts? How have I applied my strengths to be able to help the lives of other people, right? There was a quote, that was what I was thinking about a little bit earlier. There was a quote, it was by Will Smith a few months back. I thought it was really interesting. He said let me make sure that I get this right. He said, fail fast, fail often, and fail forward. Right? So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Again, it's like getting rid of that imposter syndrome, getting rid of that image management. It is literally getting into a space where you're not equating failure with negativity. Failure is a part of the process. You are trusting the process of failure with this particular area of your life. Like for me, I'm not a creative person when it comes to decorating. I'm not a creative person when it comes to cooking, right? I can cook, but if my husband want me to do all the intricate stuff and the garnish here, I'm like, okay, let me get this together, okay? Because I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm gonna have to glean from other people. I'm gonna have to glean from other folks who are really good at decorating, so I can get my house up, right? So it's a means of being comfortable enough with the strengths that you do have, and willing enough to be able to pull from the strengths that other people have. Again, it's a matter of perception, right? So it's like, okay, I understand I'm not good with the creative, with the creative cooking or with the decorative bug. I don't have that. I don't have the gardening bug, but I'm not going to beat myself up with that, because I do understand that my strength is motivational speaking. I do understand that my strength and my gift is business. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not taking that away from myself, and I'm not taking that away from other people. So it's about perceiving where your strengths are, and also being able to give credit where credit is due for other people's strengths. Make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I try not to beat myself up. There's a lot of things that I cannot do, but there's a few things that I can, just a few, just a little bit. And I'm
But
okay with
but
it.
those few things are huge. And that's what a lot of us we downplay the gifts that we have because we think everybody can do this. That's also imposter syndrome, right? Anybody can do this. This is super easy. Well, maybe super easy for you and super hard for somebody else. Like for me, I'm a techie. I'm thinking it's super easy to build a website. I'm thinking it's super ezy to build automations. People are like, oh, I need help. I need help.
I'm like, Nani, how do I share my screen? She's like,
I mean, but that's how it works. But at the same time, I'm coming to you to say, okay, what herbs do I take for this ailment? What herbs am I like? I got some feminine things going on here. I don't know what's going on with my body. And you're like, hey, sis, this is what's going on. You got mucus here, and this is going on. I'm like, hey, okay. And that's where the strength comes in. That's where it comes in, because we can't do it all by ourselves. That's where the what did you mention yesterday? I think it was intercommunication, um, inter dependency. Interdependency is what it was
yeah,
called.
we cannot be misdependent. We have to be interdependent, where we have our own little niches, but it all works and connects to each other. So it's like one big circle, and we can't let these circles be broken. So I was reading this book years ago, and I found it again, and it's called Let the Circle Be Unbroken. And she comes from an African spiritual system point of view, but there's some very good little jewels in here that we can glean from, just about making sure we constantly keep the circle, because it was broken. Esau just broke up our circle. We had us thinking that we're independent Black women, had us thinking that I can do it all on my own and I don't need this person, I don't need that person. But no, we never operated like that. Everyone gave to each other, everyone supported each other. If I had a business, there was another sister watching my kids. If that sister was watching the kids, there was another sister cooking for several families. If I was running out of a product, you would say, here, go to this sister down the street. She got the same, so we did everything as a circle. And, we have to put those pieces back together with, leadership, giving these laws and breaking things down for us. We can definitely put that stuff back together. But us as women, and letting our minds plague us, that's usually what's breaking up the circle. That's usually like the whole doubt, the jealousy, the wicked actions that we make, it's all just plaguing us. And it has us in this one little box, not wanting to, just give to the next person, or just to be vulnerable, like you said before. Because that vulnerability, I might have the little missing piece. If you just let me, this is what I'm working with, sis. This is my issue. This is my problem. I might be the missing piece, or you might be the missing piece, or Mama Shamarah might be the missing piece for what you're going through. But if you're never going to be vulnerable, how can we help? How can we all help each other?
Can I read a scripture?
Yes, ma'am.
Romans chapter 15, verse 1 and 2. It says, we're then that are strong. We then that are strong. So those who are strong in whatever aspect you may be in, ought to bear the infirmities, the sicknesses, the weaknesses of our sisters, of the weak, and not to please just ourselves. Let every one of us please his neighbor for his good to edification. So this is where the circle of sisterhood would not be broken, because we're strengthening each other through good times, through bad times, through depression, through low self-esteem, to building up to higher self-esteem, through pregnancies, through postpartum. So this is where the circle doesn't break. So in a spiritual aspect, along with a physical aspect, that these things need to be done for the healing, the healing of the nation also. And healing also begins with the self-esteem aspect.
Yeah.
Yes, and what you all are describing is the art of complementing instead of competing.
Mhm.
That complementing instead of competing is literally just like you were mentioning before. It's being able to identify where my strengths are, how I can help you, and how you can help me, right? So that way it becomes a collective instead of this big old boxing match of competition going on and nobody's winning anything.
That's right.
Right.
I think there's a big issue like that among business owners as well. You see somebody winning with their little jewelry business, or they may be making their little body butters. They selling their oils, they're doing their hair, and here comes the next person. Hey, I can sell body butters. I can do some hair. You see what I'm saying? But you can complement. You can even still be a part of the same industry and do something completely different. For example,
and that's a problem that we have as a people, the destructive nature of jealousy and envy. And leadership talks about it all the time. Everybody doesn't have to do t-shirts. Everybody doesn't have to do hair products. Should the things be similar? Like, everybody is trying to capitalize off of what someone else is doing to the destruction of everyone's business. Now, we talked about that, and this is the reason why the other nations come in and they completely eat up, the economy, and they take all of the money, and we take it then, and it goes outside of the community because we do things like this. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that most people have not repented. They don't understand what supporting a nation of people that look like them is. And if we valued that, then we wouldn't be doing some of the things that we did. And then it really does filter right back to self-esteem. Now, in the Daughters of Sarah website, we have an online magazine. And then the online magazine is called Peculiar People. And the focus of the magazine that we just posted is colorism. And colorism has a lot to do with the lack of self-esteem. And if we knew very early on that Christ was Black, that the Most High was Black, then that would build our self-esteem as a people. And it's very, very important that we put off that information and let other people know how proud we are of the color of our skin and the culture that we come from. And then that also will build on your self-esteem.
Yeah.
right, that is so true. Ooh, hot diggity.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted to say, Yoella, before I continue?
Yeah, I remember when I was in college, I was showing the sister a picture of my parents, and my parents are much lighter than me. And she was like, "Ooh, your mother's light skinned." And I was like, "What do you mean she's Black?" And I had never heard somebody call my mom light skinned before, and I was like, "She's Black," and they're like, "No, you see the color of her skin, it's light." And I'm like, "No, she's Black," and the whole colorism started in college for me, because whether you was light skin, dark skin, in my eyes, you were just Black, and, we have to understand we're from a large tribe, we're from 12 tribes. We're all different colors, but we're all Israel,
That's
you
right.
know, and in my eyes, Ephraim, Issachar, Northern, we're all Black. That's how I look at it.
But what's interesting is that the self-esteem spectrum, as far as colorism is concerned, our Northern Kingdom sisters, they deal with it also on their end also, as far as skin color, hair texture, just as well as the Southern tribes. So it's not specific to, a particular tonal issue. It really has to do with understanding who we are as a people, and that we are connected in terms of being the 12 tribes of Israel. And because we are the salt of the earth, and because we're so hated as a people, and because we've been so colonized, okay, with the self-hatred and the self-doubt that plays into self-esteem, this is what plagues us and why we need to break that curse. And it starts with how we raise our children, how we interact with one another, and the application of the scriptures.
Absolutely.
You know, there's never been a point in time in my life, and I thank God for this, where I ever felt inadequate. Well, no, I can't say ever felt inadequate as a Black woman. I'll say this. Within my family, the women in my family, because I was blessed enough to see and be raised by all four of my grandmothers, grandmother on my mother and father's side, and great-grandparents, great-grandmothers on my mother and father's side. And more of them are dark-skinned than light-skinned. And because I have a very deep connection with them, I always equated that to beauty. I would draw little pictures, little fashion pictures, you know, when I was younger, and I would always draw curvy women, and they would always be dark skinned, you know. And then when I get older, I had my vision for what I wanted my husband to look like, because my father's dark, right? And I remember my grandmother on my father's side, who is also a dark skinned woman, distinctly, I remember her telling me not to bring a real dark man home. I said, why? Why, Grandma, why? She said, because you don't want no tar baby. I was like, what? You know, and so just the mindset that showed me a little inkling of self-hatred when I was a young adult. And then it became more and more prevalent as I went through college, and then, you know, went into the working world and so forth. It is definitely a real thing. But when you have that security, you know, when you're able to, it's something as small as playing with Black baby dolls when you were a young girl makes a huge impact. Something as small as playing with Afro hair, doing little Afro hair as a little girl, and reading books where you can see yourself and you can have pride in who you are and what you look like, and you can see the beauty. I remember there was I know I'm rambling. Y'all forgive me. There was I had an uncle. He's passed on now, but he used to live in Italy. He was an opera, I don't know if you call it producer or conductor or what have you. And he sent these books home when me and my cousin were really little. And they were your traditional Grimm stories, like Rapunzel and Rumpelstiltskin and things like that. But they were Black people. They were Black people. And back then in the 90s, that was you just never heard of that, you know. And they were just the most gorgeous illustrations, the most gorgeous dark-skinned Black women, you know, just and a same story, same little Grimm story. But when they incorporated those Black people, I just couldn't wait for my grandmother to crack open that book and read me that story of Rapunzel and all different kinds of things. It was really, and those experiences, if you have little girls now, they make all the difference in the world. I thank my parents all the time that they created an environment for me that taught me to love my people early.
Right.
Okay, because it's hard to do when you get older.
Right. Think about the men traveling, you know, all across the world, going to Africa, where all they see is white Jesus or Caesar Borgia, you know, thinking that that's Christ, and growing up, you know, as a little girl, constantly seeing these images, and then now, you know, using skin lightening cream, you know, now getting sick over the skin lightening cream. And then these men in purple come in and saying Christ is Black, you know, and you're a part of his DNA. And an entire school shouting Christ is Black, Christ is Black, all over the planet. And they have never heard that before, you know. And, you know, some people are not accepting it, some people are, but I mean,
what a boost to self-esteem that was when you see hundreds of little dark-skinned girls, you know, quoting Revelations 1:14 and saying how Christ is Black, Christ is Black. That's a morale booster. That's a self-esteem booster. Life is never going to be the same for them, ever.
Never.
No one's going to be able to tell them that they're not, you know, important, that they're not relevant, because they know that they look like the King of Kings. So right. That's a great thing. So I just want to read something before we segue. The Song of Solomon, and this is like a personal favorite of mine. 1 verse 5, it says, I am black, but comely. O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. So it's a beautiful reminder, okay, that color, okay, and the representation in scripture really does matter. And it's a key element to self-esteem. And that is why our oppressors do not want us to understand that there is value in melanin. Even for our fairer skinned sisters, there is value in melanin, and understanding and accepting that our Messiah is a man of color, that he is a dark-skinned man, that he has skin so dark that it looked like it was burnt in a furnace. And that's what we really need to understand, is that the acceptance of that, that's going to help build self-esteem. It's going to help to build character and integrity within the women and the nation of Israel.
Absolutely.
I love it. So I did want to do a caveat, and this is for the single sisters, wink, wink. Okay. Now, for just to wrap up the quarter life crisis situation, a lot of us single ladies must be feeling lost. Some of us feel lost, and some of us feel lonely. A lot of times that's the feedback that I get from my Glow Getter School sisters, is that, you know, they say they still haven't found Mr. Right, right? And some of them wonder whether or not they're doing something wrong. What is it about them that keeps attracting the wrong men, so forth and so on. But they haven't even stopped to consider, have you considered that maybe focusing on being right for yourself will naturally attract the perfect man for you? You see what I'm saying? We don't take the time for self-reflection. We don't take the time for self-development, self-improvement. And once the time comes for you to introduce that marriage prospect, you haven't healed, which means now you're just bringing somebody into the damaged circle. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I always say this. Do you meet the qualifications of your qualifications? Do you meet the qualifications of your qualifications? Okay, so let's just start there. Okay, you want a spiritual man who's 6'4", who knows the scriptures, who has muscles that are rippling, and that you've got your eye on. You know, you want this, you want that, but you don't even meet the qualifications of your qualifications. So go in with the reality check, because a lot of us are in denial. And like the bishop says, denial is a river in Africa. Like, you need to wake up. Okay, so do you meet your qualifications?
I love it.
Because I counsel people all the time, and they want this, they want that, they want this. And, you know, like when leadership says, for example, that you need to put yourself 30% off, 40% off, people get offended. But what it comes down to is that you really do need the self-reflection. Go for it.
That's true.
When I came into the truth, I was a single woman, and I felt like I was so broken coming in. You know, I was like, I don't want to be bothered, you know, with a man right now. I want to get me fixed. And, you know, I made sure I was pulling on my elder mother's, you know, coattail, like, please, I need help. I need help, whatever I got to do. You know, sisters would come to me like, oh, you seem like a nice, you know, young lady. Don't you want to get married? No, not right now. Not right now. I have shit on my shoe and I'm trying to get it off. Excuse my language. And, you know, I was able to just, you know, be able to be around my elder mothers and really learn. And it was at a point where I felt like, I think I'm okay with myself, that the Most High blessed me with a husband. But I was not like, I didn't even look at that side of the room, you know, at that time. It's so we have to really just kind of reevaluate, why are we here? Why are we, you know, repented? For the single ladies that come in by yourself. You know, some people come in and, you know, they want a husband off the, you have not repented yet.
You want a paycheck. You want a meal ticket, baby. That's what you want, a meal ticket and the D. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it all the way real, okay? You ain't ready for a meal ticket and the D, okay? Because it comes with a whole lot of responsibility that you ain't ready for yet.
A whole lot of responsibility.
That's right. So Yoella used to say, she was like, you know what? I think I can do it now. I think I'm ready. Like, Mama, what you think? Like, you think I could do it? And she's laughing because she knows it's true. Because she used to say, you know what, I'm not like I can't do it right now. And, you know, and to her point, we've had lots of Titus 2s on being ready for marriage and the aspect to know that you're ready. And I know that this is part of this particular crisis period in a young woman's life, where we know spiritually, where the scriptures say that let the younger women marry, bear children, you know, and that's a role. And when you get to a certain point in your life and you have not achieved that, in your spirit, you know that there is something that is lacking. Now, because there is something lacking spiritually, there's not a connection to you and a man, and you haven't born children, that in itself lowers the self-esteem.
Right.
Now, this is where the self-examination comes in, because you have to make sure that you are completely ready to be a wife. A wife entails a lot. Okay, and Yoella, you know, when she teaches this to particular younger women, she often says, are you ready to submit 100%? Are you ready to give your body, spirit, soul to a man that's going to be responsible for you and your salvation? So it's really a heavy point that you're bringing out right now.
When I came in, I'm gonna be honest, my self-esteem was shot. I was learning who I was, and my self-esteem was low. My confidence was low. I had, went to college, got a degree, sat under Dr. Africa, took all of these seminars, and still at that quarter life crisis period, came out, graduated, came back home, and still did not know who I was. So I didn't start figuring out who I was and all of these things that I gained in the world. How could it be an asset here? Until I spent years in the truth, learning about how to heal myself spiritually. When Bishop was talking about just crumbling up that piece of paper and throwing it away, I didn't know how to do that when I first came in. I didn't know that's all I had to do. I don't have to sit on the couch. I don't have to talk to anybody. All I have to do is crumble it up and throw it away. And that's exactly what I did. And then I just really wanted to learn who I was. And then sometimes, ladies, when you come in, you think you want a certain type of man, but once you evolve, once you grow spiritually, that type that you had before was coming out of the world. Now that you're in the truth and you have learned and you have submitted to the leadership and repented and study, pray, and apply, your idea might totally change of who you want.
I want to address two comments that were in the chat, if I may, because I don't want to overlook it. There was one sister that was talking about poverty and how that affected her self-esteem. And there's another sister that talked about how she's relatively new to the truth and about wearing skirts, and she only had 2 skirts and so forth. So I just really want to share a couple of stories, okay? The first time I ever realized that poverty reflected on your self-esteem is when I was in high school and I was an honor student, and I had to go on a job interview. So I go on this job interview, and then I had to get feedback from the guidance counselor. And when I went into the guidance counselor, she told me that, she said, they thought that you were absolutely lovely, but you were a bit impoverished. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time, right? I was like, impoverished. So impoverished meant like you looked really poor, like I didn't really meet up to what their standard was. Now, the scriptures tell us about, this is where we have to be able to balance it, because the scriptures tell us to be aware of covetousness. It tells us that to be grateful and of all things, right? It tells us about the wariness of the pride of life and things of that nature. But however, at the same time, okay, we need to be able to make the best of what you have. And if you are in a situation where you are in poverty and you don't have the things that you need, this is where it's important to be connected to a congregation, so that way you can get the things that you need. I would suggest to both of the sisters that have issue with clothing or extreme poverty to reach out to some sisters that are in their congregation or their camp, and to talk about possibly some of the things that you may need for yourself. Because as women, we need things. We like interchanging of clothes. We go through our monthly cycle. We damage things. Our weight goes up and down, which is another issue with self-esteem. So those are things that I want to address. And so that way you don't think that I'm necessarily disconnected from it. Another thing is that early on in my spiritual walk, I had a lot of pants. Now, we know that pants is not part of the Israelite woman's dress code. So the other sister that spoke to, she only had 2 skirts. I went through a period of time where I only had 2 skirts. I only had 2 skirts also. So there is a way to be able to work your wardrobe, whether or not you've got 2 dresses or 2 skirts. If you've got 3 pairs of shoes and you've got about 5 blouses, you can make about 10 different outfits. Okay, so if you need help with that also, please reach out to leadership wives in your particular state and or country that would be able to help you. We need to stop making excuses for why we can't keep the law, okay? So there's a way to do it, okay? So please, if you need help, reach out to leadership, reach out to the wives to make sure that you have the things that you actually need, okay?
I thought that was so interesting. I remember when I was, I think, a freshman in college, both a freshman and a sophomore in college. And because I've always been poor, like I've never been able to say that as a child, I always got what I wanted. You know, it's something you just let fly out, you know, just roll off the back. And you just say, oh, okay, well, we can't afford it. It is what it is, you know. And then eventually you get tired of not being able to have the simplest things, you know. Eventually, I remember when I was in college, it got to a point where I would just break down crying hysterically because I couldn't afford socks. You know, I went 3 years with no books. So I had to borrow people's books, print out, use a little printer they had, print out the pages that I needed. And that's how I got by. And I graduated with a 3.8 GPA. But it's hard. It's so hard. And the struggle of not being financially stable, talking about financial freedom, we got to keep our heads above water first, right? And getting to that point is such a struggle because you do feel like you're alone in it. So just like Mama Shamarah was mentioning, you have to have a community, right? You have to have a community, because back then I felt like I was alone. Now fast forward, when my husband and I first got married, and we decided to save up on some money. So I had a decent job, he had a decent job, and we decided to save up on some money. So we left the house that we were renting out, and we got an RV and wanted to stay in a 1974 RV with 2 wolf dogs. It was less than 100 square feet of living space. And we're living in this RV, and suddenly we realized, okay, I left my job. We had a little bit of savings, so we were relying on his income, and he was working for what was it? A carpentry union. He was a carpenter. He was working for the union. So we said, hey, you in the union? They're always going to have some work for you. And how wrong were we, okay? They didn't have work for a whole year and a half. So here we are, broke, no money, homeless, okay? It was one of the worst experiences of our lives and our marriage, okay? Where here we are, we got to start from scratch. And now we have to rebuild all over again. Except this time we had a community of people to reach out to say, hey, y'all, we need to shift gears. You know, we got to press reset. Oh, we got to press reset. And we were able to press reset. And ironically enough, the following year, we both had really fantastic jobs. We're staying in a nice little 1-bedroom apartment, and that was good enough for me, you know. But it, you know, in that year, that's when I had to make a point to learn about wealth, to learn about, you know, finances, to learn how to make finances work for you, and how to, you know, build a business, because we've all realized the side hustle life is where it's at. You can't rely on the government, and you can't even rely on your 9-to-5 anymore. You know what I'm saying? Especially with this pandemic. So it's about being proactive.
I just want to read Acts chapter 4, Acts chapter 4, verse 34, where it says, neither was there any among them that lacked, For as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them, and bought the prices of the things that were sold, and laid them down at the apostles' feet, and distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. So we have to trust in leadership to be able to help those that are in need and are consistent believers and followers of Christ in the congregation.
Consistent is very important. When I was in college, I took what I knew was how to do hair, and I made that work for me. You know, I really never, I was always poor, you know, as well. My parents made a good living, but just to have the extra things in life or whatever, you know, what we had is what we had. When I went to college, I couldn't say, hey, Mom, can you send me an extra $100 this month? Or so-and-so, can you send me that? So I worked in a hair salon after school, and I did hair. And I was pretty successful at it. You know, I was just starting out, not really knowing what I'm doing, but a lot of people was just starting to go natural and start locks. I had learned how to start locks right before I went to college. So that's what I did, you know. So whatever little skill or talent you have, you know, see where it can fit, you know, so you can have a little extra money on the side. And it could turn into a big business. I ended up getting a whole hair salon, you know,
Woo, girl.
from doing hair out of my dorm.
Wow, that's awesome. That is super awesome. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit and talk about solutions, okay? So we identified the problem, we identified the quarter life crisis. So some solutions, and this is I'm about to talk to you all about a self-affirmation routine that works via my Glow Getter School students, but a self-affirmation routine. I know you all have heard that self-affirmations are, you know, they work, but they're very cliche. You may feel stupid trying to do it, but there's a method behind the madness. And we were talking just yesterday, Yoella and I, about the power behind words, and how that discipline and consistency is how you're going to slowly get yourself out of that quarter life crisis. The consistency is key. Trusting the journey, trusting the struggle of your story, because you know that on the other side of that comes, mind you, after you've applied the consistency, after you've applied the discipline consistently, I should say, on the other side of that is now your breakthrough moment, is now your new life, is now these new experiences, and you're able to pull other people out, right? So let's talk briefly about self-affirmation. So there's a little exercise where when you talk to yourself in the morning and we're going past the cliche, I am smart, I am strong, I am beautiful. We're going past that because a lot of people will say that and they don't believe a word of it, okay? Mm-hmm. So the kind of affirmation exercise that we'll be doing is very intentional. So whenever you look at yourself in the mirror and you speak to yourself in the morning, you're going to mention three things. So the very first thing that you're going to mention is, I love. You're going to say, I love, and then you're going to mention one physical aspect of yourself. And we're not going to mention an obvious physical aspect, like I love my eyes or my hair. You're going to see and find something unconventional about yourself. So what I mean by that is you're going to say something like, I love my eyelashes. You're going to look at a part of your body you don't really look at on the regular, that you don't really pay attention to. I love my nails. I love my eyebrows. I love my chin. I love my shoulders, right? And that will give you a whole new level of appreciation for the little things about you, okay? The second thing you're going to tell yourself is, I appreciate, and you're going to mention a character trait that you have. So you're going to say, I love this physical trait. I appreciate that I'm witty. I appreciate that I'm funny. I appreciate that I'm affectionate. I appreciate that I'm considerate. I appreciate that, I'm always smiling. Something about your character that you love about yourself and that you know other people to like about you, right? The third thing you're going to mention is a character trait that you may lack in, but we're shifting the paradigm of your perception, right? So you're going to say, today I'll be this particular character trait that you desire, okay? So for example, today I'll be more patient. Today I'll be more considerate. Today I will be, today I'll be more inclusive, right? Today I'll be more considerate. I think I already mentioned that, right? But so this is essentially what your morning affirmation is going to sound like. And I challenge you to do this for an entire week straight. And I'm going to reveal to you how, the kind of changes that you're going to notice within yourself. But this is what it will sound like. I love my nose. I appreciate the fact that I'm funny. And today I'll be more patient. I love my nose. I appreciate that I'm funny. Today I'll be more patient. I love my nose. I appreciate that I'm funny. Today I'm going to be more patient, right? Now, after you've pumped yourself up, you started your day with that kind of affirmation, you're going to notice, because you've turned on the self-awareness switch, you're going to notice that the conversations that you have, the interactions that you deal with, the things that you see, the things that you notice around you will reflect what you mentioned earlier that day. There have been women who tried that for an entire week. Some women say, I didn't even notice how beautiful my eyelashes are. My natural eyelashes are. I did not notice that, when I said that, I noticed that after I said that I was going to be more patient, I noticed that my conversation with people was a lot more pleasant. I was a bit slower. I was slow to anger, and because that is quite literally you practicing your faith. That you know how the scriptures in Hebrews talk about how the faith is the evidence of things not seen, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You are quite literally practicing the act of faith. If you're speaking this thing into existence, it's called self-fulfilling prophecy, like in the psychology world, but it's quite literally the same thing. If I say, I'm going to be this today, and I believe I'm going to be this today, every interaction I have, every conversation that I conduct is going to reflect my belief that this is the character trait that I'm going to have. It works. It absolutely works. It may sound like the most cliche thing in the world, but it works. And that is one way to slowly build up your confidence and to slowly build up your self-trust. So did y'all want to comment, say anything to that?
I think that was awesome. So I'm gonna practice that myself. I just want to read Psalms 139, verse 14, which goes with your story here. It says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. So my soul knoweth right well that I love my collarbones, right? I appreciate the fact that I'm loved by many. Today I will be more kind. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course. I love the positive energy. The positive energy is what it's all about at the end of the day. If you are an inherently negative person, because sometimes we have negative Nancy's among us, right? If you are, right, if you are that kind of person and you're looking to change that situation, it's going to take consistency with your discipline. If you practice these little strategies that we're bringing out, and it enables you to become more self-aware. And when you're more self-aware, you say, okay, I didn't notice that this is the air that I give off, and I would like to change that. When you're ready to change, you do make changes.
Okay.
Okay. So that was essentially just one little exercise that we could do. And I wanted to segue into childhood trauma and how to heal, because the quarter life crisis, sometimes it's not of course, it's always a gradual thing, right? But sometimes it graduates from traumas that we experience very early on, that are harder to dig up, harder to deal with, harder to talk about, versus you just being in college and poor, and then you migrate to the adult world, and now there's a whole new world of challenges. If we're not well equipped to handle those challenges, and to have the self-trust, and to have trust in the Lord, right, first and foremost, that we're going to overcome these things, then it's worth identifying the root of where those issues come from. So let's talk. Yoella, do you have anything on childhood trauma, how to heal? Because I do have a little solution, like a little exercise, 3 exercises really, on how to heal from that as well, or how to move on from trauma, so to speak.
Not necessarily specifically for children, but I have some practices that, you know, once you're an adult, that you can actually do that helps you heal mentally, but it's an actual physical practice, and it's acupuncture. I don't know if any of you all that ever gotten acupuncture, but acupuncture is a traditional Chinese medicine practice that originated years ago in China, supposedly. It is based on the premise that blockage or disturbance in the flow of body's life energy, or your chi, which is body's life energy, can cause health issues. And also, you can use this to help with mental issues, along with the prayer, along with the fasting, along with the healthy eating and exercise and things like that. So, as we talked about last week, it's all holistic. So acupuncturists insert hair thin needles in specific acupuncture points throughout the body to restore the flow of life balance. Balance body's energy, stimulating healing, and to promote relaxation. Um, a lot of researchers don't fully understand how acupuncture might work, but there are numerous theories. And one theory is that acupuncture works by stimulating the release of endorphins. So we spoke about endorphins earlier, serotonin, melatonin, oxytocin, and things like that, that flows in the body. Sometimes those things can get stuck and don't have a, you know, it gets blocked. So it goes into chiropractic care. It goes into massage therapy. It goes into a whole lot of things. Our bodies and our blood flow and things get blocked. So these techniques will kind of make it flow more, so more blood can go to our brain, so we could think a little bit more clear. We could feel a little bit more relaxed. We won't be so anxious. All that ancient anxiety and things cause digestive issues. So it's all holistic. So for children, these things can happen and show up as speech delay, or as ADHD, or as autism, or, you know, certain things that happen at birth, you know, trauma at birth. And if we never address these things while they're children, they'll just grow up with these dysfunctions, and you can actually heal them from these things. But we're going to go into all of that not next week, but the following week, about children's health. So you could go on with your point about
I
children and
have a little bit of an article here. It says,
yes, ma'am.
factors that shape and influence self-esteem. Self-esteem begins to form in early childhood. Factors that influence self-esteem include your thoughts and perceptions, how other people react to you, experiences at home, school, and in the community, age, role, and status, and social media. Relationships with those close to you, parents, siblings, peers, teachers, and other important contacts are important to your self-esteem. Many beliefs that you hold about yourself today reflect the messages that you receive from these other people over the course of time. These are like your human experiences. If relationships are strong and you receive generally positive feedback, you are more likely to see yourself as a worthwhile and healthier self-esteem. If you receive mostly negative feedback and are often criticized, teased, or devalued by others, you're more likely to struggle with poor self-esteem. But past experiences and relationships don't have to be your destiny. Your own thoughts, and perhaps the biggest impact on your self-esteem, are those thoughts that are within your own control. If you tend to focus on weaknesses or flaws, working on changing that can help you develop a more balanced, accurate view of yourself. And then I want to read a scripture. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 26. It says, whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it. If one member be honored, all the members rejoice with it. So we want everyone to be whole and happy and have good self-esteem. A nation filled with people who are happy to keep the commandments, because I mean, bottom line, that's one of the reasons why we're in captivity right now, is because we did not keep the Heavenly Father's commandments with joy and gladness of heart. And that is where self-esteem. So all of this really goes back to keeping the commandments, and really being faithful, as you were talking about earlier in Hebrews chapter 11. So when one of the members suffer, we all suffer. So it's in our best interest to make sure that we are very well-rounded and we all have healthy self-esteem, and that we are raising healthy children that understand their value to the nation and what they could actually bring to the table.
Right.
That's excellent.
That's really important, because my mother, she was that type of person. Everywhere she went, she was extremely happy. You know, she was the life of the party, whatever situation she was in. She would go to a hair salon, and everybody would be in the hair salon laughing and joking because of her presence. And she tried to instill that in her children as much as she could. But guess what? Your children go to college. Your children are now influenced by a whole different group of people that are not keeping the laws, that are not used to being in a certain environment that you was in. So now you're plagued with all of these other people's self-doubts, poor self-esteem, and, toxic thinking and bad behavior. So now you taking on these little actions. So, as parents, we definitely have to make sure we continue to surround our kids and pour into our kids and help our kids from these outside forces.
That's excellent. And that's exactly the perspective that I'm coming from, is that when you're going through things like, say, for example, you experience something as a child, because I know people personally who weren't cultivated in, that welcoming environment, who were constantly criticized. And now it's hard for them to make decisions as adults. It's hard for them to communicate and articulate their feelings as adults. And you see that, and because it's your loved ones, you're like, wow, I wish I could help you, but you have to want to be helped first, before we can move forward. My cousin is one of those people. She, when she was younger, I know that she was very, very bright, and so bright, in fact, I think her kindergarten teacher, I think maybe her first grade teacher, wanted to bump her up to third grade, and her mother said no. And there was no good reason why her mother said no. So she just lost all motivation to even do anything. Well, she said, if I'm already doing this work early, and I'm, finishing early, and I'm doing this and doing that, and I can't elevate, why even try? And from there, grades were horrible. Growing up in school, I literally had aspirations to be a stripper. That's what happens when when you lose all motivation for becoming the very best version of yourself. I mean, you literally see yourself as nothing, or you value things that devalue you, So so let's talk about 3 ways to be able to move on from any negative experiences that you've gone through in the past. The first thing is to stop giving it power. Of course, it's important to talk about it, but after you've gotten all the therapy you can, professional therapy, spiritual therapy, and you've hashed out, you've articulated your feelings, you've been given the solutions, and you've applied the solutions, stop bringing it up. Because when you bring it up, remember, those words that you use, that is an example of what you believe in, right? If you keep bringing up the same negativity, the same vile, the same, bad thoughts, or the same horrible memories, that means that you believe that they still have power over you. Once you've decided, I'm not going to talk about this anymore, the effects of those traumatic events, or the effects of those discouraging things that really turned a corner in your life, those things are going to go away. Those are going to take a back seat once you replace them. Well, Mama Shamarah, you look like you want to say something.
I do, and I'm a firm believer in the fact that whatever you feed will grow. So if you're feeding the negativity and you're always harping on that, then that's what's going to continue to overwhelm your spirit. And in 2 Timothy chapter 1, it says, wherefore I put thee in remembrance that thou stir up the gift of God. So what you should be stirring up is the gift, the spiritual gift that is within you. Do not be feeding the negative things that happened to you when you were 10, when you were 12. We talked about in Romans 12 where it says the transforming of your mind. So you've got to remove all those things. The Bible and the application is what's going to be healing you from all of those wounds and all of those negative things that happened to you when you were younger. And it says, verse 7, for God have not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. But you have to believe it. You have to believe it. So it is about your belief system built upon faith that's going to be able to help you to overcome and no longer feed into or tap into the negative. And if you're feeding yourself the negative, that's what's going to continue to grow. Not faith, not belief system, but the negativity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely
That's
accurate.
what I'm thinking.
The second thing that we do in order to move on from the negativity and the traumatic events and the negative pivot points in our lives is to replace those traumatic thoughts with self-improvement centric goals. I'm going to say that again.
Mm-hmm.
Replace the traumatic thoughts, just like Mama Shamarah was mentioning. We're replacing all that negativity with self-improvement centric goals, because those self-improvement centric goals will distract you with daily tasks to accomplish. It literally is a formula of discipline, self-awareness, and consistency that's going to help you to overcome all those negative things that happen to you, which turns into negative thoughts, which turn into you being trapped in your self-doubt, which turn into imposter syndrome, which turn into the quarter life crisis. They all work together, right? So what you start to do is you say, okay, this is a goal that I want to set for myself. And now I'm focused on accomplishing this little mini goal. Now I've accomplished this mini goal. I can take some time to celebrate, boo, 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 celebrate the goal. And then I'm going to set another one, and I'm going to work and focus and zoom in, hone in on this particular goal until I accomplish it. Then I'm going to celebrate again. And then you'll find that after you start to create a pattern of setting and sticking with and accomplishing those goals, you're going to find that you're a lot more at peace. You're going to find that you're a lot more confident because now you have some wins behind your belt. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. And last week we spoke about health. But I can look at that in a physical aspect as far as controlling your health, and then you're trying to create win-wins for yourself. So if you say to yourself, I'm going to start by drinking more water, okay, or I'm going to do a water challenge, and then you actually do that, then you can see the wins and the benefits from that. And then if you see, for example, well, you know what, I'm going to cut out all sweets, for example, and then I see now that the scale has gone down, you know, because, and the reason why I'm going on this topic, and I really want to be real, weight gain, weight loss, body image is big as far as self-esteem. So we've only literally just scratched the surface as far as self-esteem is concerned. You know, before babies, after babies, you know, menopause, all that, pre-midlife, after midlife, aging, all of that, and the effects on the body, aging gracefully. Those things all have a lot to do with the self-esteem. So in this point, when you're talking about the positive aspects, we really need to be looking in terms of goal setting for ourselves, what that looks like, along with creating realistic goals also. I'm not going back to 25. You see what I'm saying? That's not happening. So I need to make the best of what I have right now, health-wise, in all aspects, spiritually, emotionally, all of those things. And then the things that I don't like, create goals for yourself, as you were saying. And then when you achieve those goals, to celebrate.
Exactly. The third thing is to join an accountability tribe, because you can't do it by yourself. You are more likely to accomplish goals when eyes are on you and expectations are present, versus when you're left to do it by yourself. Because when you do it by yourself, you can fool yourself very easily, right? You can say, oh, I'll put it off till next week, I'll do it tomorrow. But when you have that person that calls you up and say, hey, did you get this done? So you have somebody to text you, say, hey, did you get that done? Did you knock this goal out? You're supposed to have this done by Friday. What's going on, right? Then it lights a fire under you to say, okay, shoot, let me go ahead and get this stuff done. Okay. And there are different ways to be able to do that. And I'm actually going to, I have a very special offer for those who are staying until afterward. If you do need help with grabbing an accountability tribe and really getting to all of becoming the very best version of yourself in all aspects. We're talking about the mental, we're talking about the spiritual, and we're talking about the financial as well. Another thing, and I think we were discussing this yesterday, Yoella, was self-fulfilling prophecy, not necessarily just with you, but when you, and this goes into the accountability piece, is that when you have a certain expectation of someone, either whether it be for them to win or whether it be for them to fail, they will meet up to your expectations. Okay. There was an experiment that went down in the 60s. I don't know the name of the experiment. I completely forgot, but they wanted to test the power of, the words and the self-fulfilling prophecy and all that. And so the experiment was that they took a random group of students. This was an educational type situation. They took a random group of students and to test the ability of whether or not this random group of students were going to succeed based upon the environment that's created for them, right? So they gave out this random test and they said this test is an aptitude test to be able to siphon out which children are considered gifted. So they did this bogus test, they collected the test back, and they just selected a random group of students to say these students are gifted students. They're considered gifted students. And so that means that the teachers actually treated the gifted students differently. They spoke to them differently, expected differently from them, as opposed to the ones that were not considered gifted. How many of us can say that we've gone through an experience with a guidance counselor? Mama Shamarah is a testament to that. With a guidance counselor who had a very low expectation of you and projected that onto you, and that made you feel inadequate or less than, right? So when you talk to people with the expectation of getting to the same page. You talk to them with the expectation of building up on that relationship. You can tell if somebody has an expectation of making you an enemy, because they speak to you in that way, don't they? You can, and it's something to be aware of as well, because if you're speaking to somebody, you have a bad attitude. What are you communicating to that person? You're communicating to that person, I have no interest in getting to know you. I have no interest in you getting better or you developing into the very best version of yourself, because I don't expect that from myself. You see what I'm saying? So when it's something you are aware of, it's something you can say, okay, if I expect for the both of us to come together as intelligent human beings and come to the same conclusion and be on the same page, I'm going to speak to you in a way where I expect that from you. And you're going to communicate in a way to me, whether you intend to or not. You're going to communicate to me so that we do end up on the same page, because I expect us to be on the same page. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it's like speaking life into one another.
Exactly.
I have something that I can read, a little small paragraph to that. This is The Nutritional Destruction of the Black Race by Dr. Africa. And it says, here lies Mr. and Mrs. Negro, they ate themselves to death. But this part is called Talking Can Make You Sick. It says, conversations with supposedly nice, well-mannered Caucasians can cause destructive, emotional anger, boredom, frustration, and stress in the African or Israelite people. Since African people or Israelite people are highly melanated, it causes them to be highly emotional and spiritually sensitive. Therefore, Africans can feel Caucasians are deceitfully hiding their insincerity and dependent on words, order, or logical rationale. Conversations can make no holistic sense. It is Caucasians' abnormal thinking which relies on word process. In other words, Caucasians feel that if something makes sense to them, it must make sense to everyone. This is an arrogance. This is part of their religious behavior or their religious belief in the myth of white supremacy. Caucasians' conversations has no rhythm and relies on words fragments to explain their ideas. So who are you talking to? Who are you
Right.
talking to? And why do you feel that way? So that's also self-awareness. Like, who are you really talking to? So a lot of people that can't get it together, a lot of people whose minds are still, they're repented, but they're still having a negative self. Are you still watching these shows? Are you still going and counseling with people that has absolutely no interest in your well-being? So the question is, who are you talking to?
Absolutely.
That
That
is
was
so
powerful.
true. So last segment before I pivot to Yoella, and then wrap it on home with how we're able to really improve on our lives, is to talk about what success means and what success looks like. So ultimately, versus having that excess equate to your how much money is in your bank account, right? Success truly equates to the quality of happiness that you have. It equates to hygiene, because when you feel clean and fresh, you act clean and fresh. You know what I'm saying? It equates to clarity of mind. So you have a clearer mind when you're able to clear out your work and your life space. If you have a nice clear office, there actually is something that psychologically happens with us when we're in an atmosphere where it's clean, it smells nice, you have a clear head, you can concentrate more, you can focus more, you're less distracted, versus if you're working in a cluttered environment, you feel like there's chaos going on in your mind. So that's extremely important as well, right? Success looks like the quality of relationships that you have. If you're the kind of person that surrounds yourself with toxic people, that means you're a toxic person as well. And toxic people, misery loves company. Misery loves company. And so if you're one of those people who realize, I need a change, I can't deal with these toxic vibes, I have to change my circle, I have to change my environment, you're going to feel you're going to experience more clarity. I think it is such a wonderful experience to get feedback from current Glow Getter School students. There are women who have conquered depression. There are women who feel, more clear in their lives. There are women who are catching coins. I'm gonna just keep it real. They're building profitable businesses. And all of those things encompassed together, especially when it comes to the financials and building what's known as generational wealth. We throw that term around like it's nothing, but wealth, and we were discussing this also yesterday, wealth literally is the spillover after your income has paid all of your expenses. That's what wealth is. Every single last one of us has the potential to start wealth from where you are. So for example, if I know that monthly expenses equates to $3,500 a month and the total monthly income is $4,800, the spillover, hold on one second, I'm gonna do a little calculations. So I'm gonna do 4,800 minus 3,500. We're looking at 1,300. That's your wealth. That's your wealth. And you can actually start to build on and multiply that wealth from there by investing in what's known as income bearing assets. So learning how money works so that you're not craving it all the time, so that you make it work for you, that's a part of success, right? Because you don't have to lose sleep over how you're going to eat. You don't have to lose sleep over how you're going to be able to afford, the place that you're staying in, how you're going to be able to afford your clothes, the whole situation. If you can start, you're listening from women who started from below ground zero, who are able to work and build and trust the process and take the time to create a life that looks like success, to create a life that, even though you may go through your bouts of confusion, you may go through your bouts of self-doubt, through it all, there is an umbrella of happiness there. There is an umbrella of true peace there. Yes, ma'am. You want to speak?
What I wanted to say, I wanted to interject, is that the scripture does say, just to balance what you're saying, what good is it if a man has everything in the world but loses his own soul? I'm just paraphrasing it, right? So bottom line is that even though wealth, there's different aspects of wealth. So you have your financial aspect of wealth, and then you have your health is more invaluable wealth wise, right? More than riches and more than gold. And we went over that last week. And then you have the spiritual aspect of wealth also. And I just wanted to, let me read the scripture here from Paul, I believe it is, Second Timothy chapter 4, where it says, "For I am now ready to be offered, and at the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth, there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me only, but unto all them that love his appearing." So for me, from a spiritual aspect, that is the ultimate wealth as far as the crown given to us by the Heavenly Father if we do well in this life. So yes, there has to be a balance of it, because, you know, we have to be aware of covetousness. We have to be aware of the pride of life. We have to be aware of all those things, because we can't take any of those things with us. Should we be financially astute? Should we understand the things as far as business, as the scriptures tell us to do in Proverbs chapter 31? Yes, but we have to make sure that there is a balance.
Right, right. And the most important thing to keep in mind with all that, when it comes to kingdom building, is that there's absolutely no point in being focused on building a business or building wealth or what have you, if the to your point, getting to the kingdom, absolutely the most important, right? Absolutely the most important. But in order to get there, in order to build your spiritual resume, so to speak,
Yep.
it's by saying, okay, how am I taking my talents? How am I multiplying those talents so that I can pay it forward? You literally having certain success in life really boils down to the number of people you help before them bombs drop. Do you feel me? It boils down to the number of, like, have I truly and fully, with everything that I have, poured my heart and soul into multiplying my talents to improve the lives of other people? Because the money's going to come. If you are setting up a legacy that does just that, the money will come, right? But it's about strategy. It's about strategy. So it's like, okay, how can I be able to really multiply those talents to make sure that my spiritual resume says I did a bomb job. I did a really, really fantastic job paying it forward, improving the lives of other women, and ultimately being trained up to be a mother to other women. You know what I'm saying? That's, oh man, that's super important. When you visualize it every day, it will become a reality. So that's what I had. That's all I had.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Okay, so we're going to go into practices of successful people. So when I look at successful people, or what success is to me, I'm looking at what are they doing every day, you know? So one thing that I've seen with the people that I look at that's successful is once they get up in the morning, they pray and they meditate. You know, so this is a practice that I had to make sure I was implementing in my life. So prayer and meditation, taking that time out first thing in the morning to get your thoughts together, to give thanks, to give praise, and to give gratitude to the Most High for all of your blessings, wherever, and counting your blessings. You know, a lot of us think that we're just, you know, down and desolate or whatever, but you're alive. You woke up this morning. You know, that's a blessing within itself, you know? So that's praying and meditate. Successful people exercise. They exercise every day. A lot of people, like there's this one midwife that I admire, and I noticed her build, like, you know, I'm into health, so I noticed her build. She said she gets up in the morning. She's in the world, so I don't know what she does with her, you know, meditation practices, but she exercises. You know, she said that gets her mind thinking and turning. It makes her clear, you know, so she's not, and she looks the part. So she's ready to catch a baby. she's ready to stay up all night, with that mother to make sure, she's there for the baby. So another thing is being organized. And that's where I came to you, Sister Nani, and was like, you know what? I have all of these ideas, and I have a business, and in taking my business to the next level, how do I get organized, not being a techie, not knowing what the next step is, because I just like to make products. I like to help people with health. That's my thing, health, and that's it. So how do I get that out to the world? So that's going to somebody that can help me get organized. Clean eating. Most people that I know that are very successful will not dare put any foul anything in their body, so, and that's a process, because if we've been trained to eat a certain way, and now we realize we've been bamboozled in thinking that we need breakfast, lunch, and dinner, ham, eggs, and cheese, and all this stuff, and soda, and this and that. Now we're understanding, okay, we should break our fast with, which is breakfast, with tea, with some water, so it's a restructuring of how we're going to eat, and that also helps your brain to think, to get more successful, to become more successful, whether it's spiritual success, financial success, anything that you're trying to achieve. Another practice of successful people is positive circles, which we all just spoke about. Who are you talking to? Who are your counselors? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are your friends? When you just out kicking it with the sisters, what's the conversation like? I've always wanted to be around other sisters that are trying to achieve their goals as well. So that's normally what I'm talking about, what's the next level, or just bettering your marriage, or how to better your children, or, what your children did that was very successful, or very profound, or, something, confidence building in children. So the positive circles, all the other stuff, I just can't talk about. I just don't have time for, I just don't. And then of course, successful people are financially stable. So it's whether they have the wealth, or they're, just meeting their needs and very comfortable with that. But they are successful. They don't have to go to the government for the handout, even though if you need that, definitely not speaking against it. But as Shamarah said in her Titus 2, we can't be dependent on these things, So successful people are learning how to be financially stable. And all of these things equate to a stable minded person, a healthy person, a strong person, spiritually healthy, mentally healthy, and physically healthy. So I don't know if you all have some practices of your successful people that's in your life. And then after we go through that, we can wrap up.
Oh, hot diggity. Mama Shamarah, you have anything?
So I have healthy self-esteem is when you have a balanced, accurate view of yourself. For instance, you have a good opinion of your abilities and recognize your flaws. So we all have flaws, and we need to be able to recognize them and work towards them, as Nani was saying earlier. When self-esteem is healthy and grounded in reality, it's hard to have too much of it. However, we have to be mindful about boasting and feeling superior to other people, because we haven't really addressed that aspect of it either, because you have one aspect of low self-esteem, and then you have another aspect of high self-esteem, where sometimes it could be a superiority complex, and especially within the sisterhood, especially with women who might be married to men of rank and so forth. It could be vain babbling. It could be using their lord's rank to demean sisters, not necessarily being kind things of that nature. So there is a cross to bear. The scripture says that pride cometh before a fall. So we've got to really be very cognizant of that. When you value yourself and you have good self-esteem, you feel secure and worthwhile. There's a scripture in Sirach that I wanted to address with sisters that have some low self-esteem, where it talks about being bashful. Sirach chapter 20, verse 23, 22, 23. Okay, so it says, there is that destroyeth his own soul through bashfulness, and by accepting of persons overthroweth himself. There is that for that bashfulness promised to his friend, and maketh him his enemy for nothing. So this is where self-esteem comes in also with sisters, because if you're bashful or shy or quiet and you don't stand up for yourself, or you don't have the ability to do so, then sometimes you could be taken for granted. You feel like you have been abused in some way or another. And we hear this often where people say that somebody took advantage of me, or, this sister didn't like me, or something like that, or I didn't want to speak up for myself. That has a lot to do with not valuing yourself and having low self-esteem. Okay, so we got to be mindful, because you have both ends of the spectrum. You've got the very, very low self-esteem aspect, where you don't want to stand up for yourself and you don't value yourself. And then you've got the other end in terms of being high-minded, haughty, and things of that nature. So there has to be a healthy balance spiritually that of your self-esteem and how you interact with other people. With healthy self-esteem, you are assertive in expressing your needs and your opinions. You are confident in your ability to make decisions. You're able to form and secure honest relationships, and less likely to stay in unhealthy ones. So to Yoela's point, negative Nancy's, as Nani was saying, those are unhealthy to your self-esteem. And particularly for young women, where and I know this happened a lot in middle school, high school, college, where you're around people that that don't really exhort you, that don't really breathe life into you. You're ugly, you're fat, you're stupid, things of that nature. We need to be speaking kind and be kindly affectioned one to another, as the scriptures say. You need to have realistic expectations of yourself, and not be overly critical of other people. I often talk about respect, okay? Respect, people think automatically it happens, but in order to get respect, you need to be a respectful and kind person yourself, because what you give out, you will also receive. Right. Now, as far as stress and stress management is concerned, as we were talking about how it directly correlates with the immune system and health, for example, low self-esteem, sisters tend to be depressed. It correlates with their health, with their weight, insomnia, headaches, fatigue, chronic pain, heart disease, inflammation, diarrhea, stomach issues. So this conversation can actually continue, but bottom line is that we can all be healed through the word of God and through the application of the scriptures. And then I wanted to say one of my favorite scriptures, and everybody knows it, about Romans chapter 12, about the transformation, that this is an ongoing process, that you're not going to wake up one morning and then everything is going to be great. And I want to say that, because some people may be joining us and thinking, okay, well, yesterday I had a really bad day and I'm not really feeling well today about myself. But with the application of the scriptures and all of the resources and all the things that we discussed scripturally, medicinally today, you can improve, you can be better. But each and every single day, you have to be able to make improvements to yourself, to work on your self-esteem. And that really is it.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so final thing, because I do want us to just blast through these Q&A, these questions really quick. There's only 3. But while we're doing that, I did want to let ladies know that there is a way, or there is a resource out there. Of course, the Daughters of Sarah, for those of you who are Daughters of Sarah, who are tuned in here, we already have a wonderful, wonderful resource of learning how to blossom as women, right? How to have spiritual strength, how to be righteous women, how to be righteous wives, the whole situation. But there is also a resource available to you if you are looking to find a way to conquer the quarter life crisis and show up more organized, more energized, more vibrant, and financially stable, and in some cases even financially independent, meaning that you're able to work full time doing what you love to do, helping people flourish, right? So I did want to share this opportunity. Give me 1 second. Boop, 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 boop. All right, let me know if you can see my screen here.
Uh-oh.
Takes a little second.
Oh, Lord. I done lost you.
You lost me?
No, I see you.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Okay. All right, so ultimately this is a special just for the ladies who are attending today, that you are able to enroll in the Glow Getter School, because a lot of you are familiar already with the Glow Getter School, to actually take actions on your glow up with no excuses. So students typically enroll at, I want to say 1,100, but it is available for you all. This is a resource that's available for you all for only $35 a month. If it's something that you're looking to do, you have until Friday to hop on it, but I will be able to share the link with you just to kind of recap what we talked about today in terms of what's going on with you in the quarter life crisis, and all the resources that will be available to you to learn how to conquer that, both through a hybrid group coaching and self-help program, okay? Tons of value, tons of content, and there you can even observe the case studies of women who have been a part of this program since we launched, who have been a part of this program just recently. There are even some women in here who are not Daughters of Sarah, who are Glow Getter School students. So they're just, all these resources, and so you'll be able to see their come up and the things that they've been able to experience. Like I said, there are women in here who have conquered depression, which is such a blessing to be able to say this tool or this resource is what they use to be able to grow in that consistency, grow in that self-awareness, and ultimately grow in their financial education as well. So it's super, super awesome. In the meantime, let me go ahead. I'll share the link, and then I would love for us to answer the Q&A. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay, so the link is in there, ladies. Question number 1, what do you do if you do not know your gifts? Oh, can I answer that?
Of course.
What do you all have to say to that before I can answer it?
No, go ahead, Nani.
All right. What do you do if you do not know your gifts? That's actually an interesting question to ask, because within the Glow Getter School, even if all you have is an idea right now, what we do is we start you out with a series of career assessments to literally help you to find the perfect marriage between what you love to do and what you're really good at doing, what your talent and what your passion is, and then create something unique that you can bring to the table so you're not stepping on people's toes, right? You're creating something unique that you can bring to the table, and then you learn the strategies to be able to monetize that, okay? Question number 2, what characteristics should you have to be ready for marriage?
That's a Daughters of Sarah question. This is health talk.
Yeah, it is.
That's
Please
a deep
contact thedaughtersoфsarah.com.
Contact thedaughtersoфsarah.com, www.thedaughtersoфsarah.com, IUICDOS.org. And we have several articles. And then also through Israel United in Christ, there are tons of videos from leadership that have conversations about marriage and the expectations for the Daughters of Sarah, along with in the Titus 2 notes section of the website. There are plenty of articles and comments and notes from Titus 2s over the past year that you should be able to get help on that issue.
Absolutely. You'll get a lot of help, like a lot more than Health Talk can give you. Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And there's even, it was ironic because a few months ago, I think it was last month. Was it last month last month was Righteous Wives Month. The month before that was Single Ladies Month. in the Glow Getter School. And so there are workbooks that are sent to you all every single month as Glow Getter School students. So when you print them out, you're able to actually write down. It's all meant to be cumulative for making those daily goals, setting daily tasks, and accomplishing those daily tasks. Learning, from the portal that you have to be able to see, okay, what is it that I need to bring to the table of marriage? What is it that I expect? How do I communicate, right, with my future husband? How do I communicate with myself, right? So those kinds of things, of course, that is a resource for you. Daughters of Sarah, listen, no marriage can stand without the power of the Most High merging you two together. You know what I'm saying? So they break down the biblical way that we are supposed to conduct ourselves. They break down the biblical way that we are supposed to have a set mindset around making sure that we are firm pillars of support for these men who are changing people's lives every day. Okay.
And
So
the
you
steps
need,
to take leading up to marriage, proving a friend, courtship, betrothal, and then marriage. So there's numerous videos, and the daughtersofsarah.com will definitely address that question.
And still to be continued, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's never ending. Like, it's never
It
ending.
will be continuing, and even as I continue to go through my journey. And I'd like to end with one last scripture after Nani is done.
Oh, we have one more question. Just one more question. It says, how do you cut soul ties with someone you know nothing about?
That's a spiritual question, more so than a health question. Spiritual soul ties are real, but a lot of that may have to do with fasting and prayer to disconnect yourself from that person. Okay. If you are attending a IUIC school, I would speak to leadership to pray and anoint you for whatever you may be lacking, or if you feel like you've got some sort of issue that you need to deal with that you can't handle on your own.
Right.
Wonderful. All right, Mama Shamarah, take it away.
Okay, so I'd like to close with Hebrews chapter 10, 23 to 25. It says, let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering, for he is faithful that promised. And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works. And I enjoyed this conversation today, and I think it really professed us to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. And even though we're in the period of time where we really can't get together, it's sessions like this where we can exhort one another and assembly ourselves on a different platform. So thank you, Yoella and Nani, for having me this morning on this platform. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you, ladies, for joining us today. And until next time, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, ladies.
Just want to let you all know, so we will be tuned in again next week. Next week, we'll be discussing postpartum. We have a very exciting guest for that. And to make sure you visit cocofresh.com for all your health needs, for health consultations, for postpartum consultations, for fertility consultations. Also, make sure you subscribe to Coco Fresh Ancient Herbal Therapy on YouTube. Anybody else have anything to say?
They wanted to know what the article was called that Mama Shamarah read from, and the name of the book that you pulled up, the very first book that you pulled up.
I was reading an article from the Mayo Clinic, and it's titled Self-Esteem Check, Too Low or Just Right.
Oh, I like